On the show is Kush Bora, founder of kushbora.com. I want to come to you first, Karthik. Markets not picking on global cues, opening in green once again.
It's a flattish open, a little in the green, Shweta. I think what has really not worked in the favor of markets to have a much better expectation than or a much better outcome than expectation is the fact that SBI, I think, is pulling down the markets. SBI, remember, lost almost 38,000 crore rupees in market capitalization after its results came out, and the stock tanked on Friday. So SBI pulling down the markets, SBI pulling down the Bank Nifty index, which is weighing a little bit on the markets, but otherwise Sensex and Nifty have opened to a flattish green start, if I can put it.
All right, let me quickly get Kush into this conversation. Kush, what's happening here? Markets actually snapped their three-day losses last Friday, opening in the green today. What is the expectation going ahead?
Hi, Shweta. First up, thank you for having me over. Well, the expectation is quite clear. The markets are going to remain under a bit of a pressure, till the time the indices, both of them, Nifty and Bank Nifty, do not cross their 50-day moving averages. Now, for the Nifty, that comes somewhere close to 19,650, and for the Bank Nifty, it comes somewhere close to 45,350 odd. So till these levels are taken out, I don't think we can safely turn around and say that yes, the worst is over, the fall is behind us. Although it's very heartening to see the second day, after Friday, today also markets are actually trading in the green, even if by not much. So I would say that for the indices at the moment, you could, if you have a lower, if you have a buy position from lower levels, hold on to those with trailing stop losses. But any fresh position on the indices, I would avoid. My focus would actually be largely on the stocks, and then there's a plenty of action that's happening in the stocks. So yeah, on the indices, it's a no trade zone right now. But as I said, stocks, plenty of action.
Kush, we'll come to stocks in focus, subsequently, and especially on Reliance Industries, which I want to come to you, in some time. But perhaps let's look at what are the other stocks on your radar today. What are you picking up? What are you following?
So a couple of stocks here, two very different kind of moves that, we've seen on these stocks. First is Canfin Homes. Now, we all know the kind of fall that, the stock had come on, into just, some time ago, due to some corporate governance issues. It's not a good thing to say, but the market's sort of getting used to that now. And, they've time and again said, they have checks and measures in place to avoid something like this. But the stock does have a tendency to rebound quite sharply. And now this is the third day when the stock is actually rebounding from its low levels of 1720. Canfin Homes is something that I have on my radar from a buying perspective. A positional target on this would be 770 plus. And the stop loss would be 715. Exactly the opposite of this is my second stock, which is Kaplan Point Lab. This stock has been gaining from strength to strength. For the last month and a half or two, this stock has not even breached its 20-day moving average, and it's headed up. So a positional target on this is 1000 plus, and 925 is where I place my stop loss. So as a standard disclaimer, these are some of the stocks that we've discussed with our clients in our advisory service. So yeah, these two picks, as I said, very different setups, but yeah, both look good on the charts from here on.
Okay, talk to us specifically about 197 Communications, Paytm and Zomato. Two startups that listed recently in the middle of their earnings seasons. On Friday, we saw the results come out. Talk to us about these two stocks specifically. Where do you see them heading?
Sure. On a lighter note, we're still calling them startups. But
how do you want to define them? I think the broader parlance is, you associate certain brands with startups, but they're well beyond that journey now.
Aren't they, right? And just for some reason the tag doesn't seem to be going away, right? See, these are the big boys, these are the poster boys of the entire platform space, the new age stock space, right? So both of them have actually started their upward journey some time ago. Now, if I look at the IPO levels, these stocks are still some level away. At least Zomato is. So that will be some pain. But if we can just keep that brief moment of history aside, the recent past suggests that the stocks are actually turning around. They've actually breached quite a few key technical levels also. So for me, 197 will remain a buy on dips now till the time it holds on to those 760 to 800 kind of levels. It's a support zone, plus it also has some key moving averages converging around that level. Upside, I see targets of 925 and about 75 odd kind of levels coming on this. But this is more of a positional bet. Zomato, again, a stellar set of results, and we've already seen a follow through after that. What is encouraging is that the 2 days after the result also, the stock's actually gaining from strength to strength on the back of good volumes. So I wouldn't be surprised to see 125 and 145 kind of levels on this. Any fresh entry would warrant a stop loss at about 90 from where the stock gave a breakout. But I think the tide has turned for some of these stocks, especially given that the path of profitability is now in focus for most of them, at least if not all.
Okay. And let's also look at the Q1 earnings expected today, and if we can pull up that graphics, I think some household names which are up to announce their Q1 results today. This includes, of course, Emami, Barbecue Nation, Max, Indigo Paints, Policy Bazaar, Fintech. Again, I don't know if you want to still call it a startup or not, but these are again names which are household names. What are your expectations from these?
So I come in from a more technical standpoint on some of these. I'd rather pick Emami and Policy Bazaar, given the recent conversation we just had. Very similar view, the recent trend, and by recent I mean the beginning of 2023. If we look at all these stocks, they've actually been quite stupendous in the run that they've given. I don't see a reason why this should not continue. Although from a technical standpoint, as I said, there's a slight negative divergence, RSI divergence on the daily charts, as we call it on Policy Bazaar. But that is probably like a momentary blip, given the kind of big run. So Policy Bazaar could head upwards again. 850 is the kind of level that this could see in the coming times. So definitely a buying candidate. As far as Emami goes, well, this stock also is acting slightly different from the entire FMCG pack. In an FMCG pack are pockets. There are some which are more rural dominated, and some others that they have their own speciality. Emami, on the other hand, if you see, has actually been in a strong uptrend. This is also significant rural play. So if this stock is doing well, this actually bodes well for the entire Indian economy and the FMCG sector as a whole. So I won't be surprised that if this continues an up move, even if because of the result there's a dip and the stock does hold 435, 440 kind of levels, I'd still buy this. For me, this will be a buy on dips. Upward levels 480 and 500 plus kind of zones is where I see the stock heading, as I said, in the coming days.
Okay, and now let's.
I also want to quickly understand from our guest here on what is his view on Kush. What is your view on SBI? Because SBI continues to pull down the market since Friday close when it reported its quarterly results, missing estimates there. What is your view of the SBI stock?
So I'd just like to put this in perspective. I know SBI has fallen sharply, and for the last 5 sessions, it's down from those 620 levels to almost 750 levels, right? But just putting things, in context, if I look at the move that the stock had given, not too far, somewhere end of March, the stock was at 500 level and it went almost up to 600, 625 kind of levels. So we've already seen a 20% plus kind of move on this. Just from an objective standpoint, some percentage point shaved off actually is a good sign. This stock actually becomes a healthy buy somewhere around these levels. This is the level where the stock also resides, is taking support around its 200-day moving average. So for me, this is a buy on dips. It's just that, as the conventional wisdom goes, never buy on dips, never catch a falling knife. So I just wait for this stock to arrest its fall. It could happen here, or it could happen another 10 points from here, which is around 560 zones. Once that happens, for me, SBI, will become a very clear buy. It's just a matter of, when and not if. So once I see this, fall, arrested and some sort of a bounce, for me, SBI will become a buy.
Is it the typical case of too big to fail, Kush, that keeps you bullish on SBI? Is it a typical case of what we've seen in the US and now perhaps SBI in India, that it's too large an entity for anybody to allow it to fail, and hence it's always good to have some SBI in your portfolio?
Not entirely, and I'll tell you why. See, I don't track this from a very close fundamental lens, but let me tell you this: the run-up in the PSU stocks for the last year and a half has been stupendous, and we've seen these kind of moves in the past in the PSU space, but they have not lasted; they've fizzled out, right? People have always discounted the PSU move as the last up move, before the market falls. I don't see, this as the case right now, for a very simple reason. If you see the kind of structural changes that are happening in the entire, public sector enterprise space, it's phenomenal. The defense stocks are, a case in a point, and, even PSU banks are a case in point. So for me, this is just, an overheated stock which is just cooling off. So once that happens, this will become a buy. In fact, if this does look a little dicey, after the kind of fall, may I recommend an alternative, which is Canara Bank. The stock has not actually fallen as much. It's only been in line with markets. So perhaps Canara Bank would be a more comforting buy if someone wants to enter at these levels. But as I said, SBI for me does remain a buy. This is just a case of an overheated stock just cooling off a little sharply.
All right, so Kush continues to be bullish on SBI, but
and Canara Bank
there. But shifting focus slightly to another big important story that we're tracking, and Kush, stay with us, is that of Reliance. Reliance very recently jumped up to 88th position in the Fortune 500 list of companies, has a slew of new initiatives, measures that we have seen in the recent days and weeks. The latest of which is Jio Financial Services could be listed anytime now.
Yes, and I think a lot more news emerging from the Reliance table, and I think Kush would be looking at that stock like the rest of us and the rest of the investor community really closely today. So let's just pull up all the news that has come from Reliance between last afternoon, last evening and this morning. Number one, Mukesh Ambani is expected to get a 5-year extension if the board approves that not, but we'll come to that big news later. And let's stick to the Reliance, let's start with maybe the Reliance Telecom, Jio Telecom story only, right? So there's a fresh infusion of $2.2 billion from the Swedish Export Credit Agency, and the makers of Ericsson and Nokia Gear are now going to transport their equipment here in India for 5G deployment across India. Now, Jio, according to the annual report that came out yesterday, claims to have an 80% market share of 5G base stations already in India, and is said to be serving about 6.2 lakh villages with wireless broadband already. So these are some of the brilliant bets that Mukesh Ambani has made with Jio Telecom, right? This was an oil major which diversified into telecom and other businesses. But that's not all. In addition to about 70,000 odd new employees which got added in Reliance Jio last year, there's a different story, spinning out in the Reliance retail part. So let's look at Reliance Retail, and Reliance Retail happens to be one of the other new bets of Reliance, wherein the group has recorded 1 billion transactions in the last financial year on a base of about 430 million subscribers. Sorry, I think we missed writing million there, but it's 430 million subscribers which are part of Reliance Retail Ventures. Now, let's move on to financial services. So I think in the report, Reliance very clearly articulates that it is going to actually transition but transition into new businesses, wherein financial services and energy services and energy businesses rather are the biggest bets that it wants to make in the next 15 years or so. Now, let's talk about Reliance Jio Financial Services. It demerged a couple of weeks back from the parent company. There was a price discovery of about 261 rupees. In a couple of days from that, it partnered with BlackRock, the largest ever mutual fund player in the market, US-based company. Thereafter, Reliance Jio has already moved on. Reliance Jio Financial Services has rather already become one of the largest, in fact, the largest financial services company in India. And let's move to the energy services, and this is something that that becomes surprising coming from the stables of an oil company and a petroleum company, that Reliance wants to transition completely to an energy business with an aim of net carbon zero by 2035. And for this, there are new gigafactories already being built in Jamnagar. There is fresh infusion of about 75,000 crore rupees expected by way of investments into renewables and hydrogen projects. Now, let's come to the big news. Mukesh Ambani wants to continue as chairman and managing director of Reliance Industries for another 5 years. His term expires next year. He's right now 66 years in age. Next year he turns 67. He should have ideally been looking at retirement at the age of 70. But a special resolution is being passed, and that resolution suggests that he is going to, perhaps if he gets the nod from the board, going to continue for another 5 years till 2029 at the age of 72, as the chairman and managing director. So I think that is the big news coming out of the annual report, and that is something that the markets should be watching for very closely today. I want to leave the audience with a little bit of trivia, but we will come back to that in detail later.
Okay.
Is how much salary Mukesh Ambani makes, how much salary Neeta Ambani makes, and how much salary other
board
board members make. So we'll hold on to that. Let's get Kush back and get his views on whatever we are seeing latest coming out from the Reliance table.
Kush, if you're still with us, from retail to Financial Services, and then more and more coming in by the way of Reliance. Reliance there continues to be one of the most promising conglomerate here in India.
Well, absolutely it does. And if I can, take a shot at trivia without giving the answer away, if you don't know, it's not something that you can guess very easily, right? So yeah, I'll just leave it at that, just to keep the suspense, out there. So see, as far as the stock goes, I have always maintained that, Reliance in the current scheme of things, in the current setup, will remain a buy on dips. In fact, it might be, a little odd to say, but I actually wait for some kind of bad news in the stock to come in so that it dips and, we get it at a slightly cheaper level. Now, currently, if I see the stock is trading close to its 200-day moving average, trading very strong, taking very strong support at those levels. So 2450, as long as the stock holds this, for me, it's a very clear buy. Now, on the upside, I won't be surprised, 2600, 2750 are the levels that the stock could, test. In fact, the price before the Jio Financial's demerger was 2850. If you're a long-term investor, if you've got some patience, then don't be surprised to see this level also. So for me, Reliance, as I said, in the current scheme of things, is a very strong buy, and any kind of bad news, any kind of dips would actually be an opportunity to enter into the stock.
Kush, what is the status on Jio Financial Services? How long does it take for, after an entity has been demerged from the parent company, how long does it take for it to be listed as a fresh entity? And what happens to the 1:1 shares that holders of Reliance Industries got just ahead of the demerger?
So I'll take the second question first. It's a very simple transaction. Consider it as a bonus transaction where the number of shares just get added to your account. A similar thing will happen. You'll see, if you see your demat statement, you'll see Jio Financial Services as a stock will have the same number of shares as you hold Reliance Industries. That it's a very simple transaction. The date, I am not very sure of. If the IPO rules are anything to go by, then within 14 to 21 days the stock should be in your account. But as I said, I don't have an update on date, so I wouldn't want to fathom a guess on this.
Okay, and should we let the cat out of the bag if you don't have more questions?
I have just one more question.
Okay.
What about those who ended up buying the Reliance stock just ahead of demerger? Maybe a couple of stocks. Are they going to see the stock gaining same value as it did? I think what you're suggesting is maybe in the near future it will be at 2850 levels sometime. Back about a decade or so now, when the entire the entire pack of entities demerged, the value that is created is multifold, right? I think Reliance is going to live up to that with the Jio Financial's demerger, and going forward all the other value unlocking that we are talking about. I am not surprised that this will actually again be a humongous wealth creator for investors going forward. Okay.
From a trading perspective, as I said, 2850 is already something that I see on the chart that the stock would move to. You'll probably have to have some patience. That's about it. But yeah, if the stock holds on to 2450 levels, this is a very screaming buy on dips for me.
All right, Kush, and before curiosity kills the cat, I do want to know what are the salaries they're drawing.
Kush, let's have you take a go at it. Of course, I think you said that you know
Kush
the answer. I don't want to steal your thunder. What is Mukesh Ambani's present salary, Kush?
So the salary that Mr. Ambani takes is nil. It's zero. So he doesn't take any salary out of Reliance Industries or the group. So yeah, that's the answer.
Sahi jawab. Aap bane crorepati, but Mukesh Ambani at a nil salary. Absolutely right, Kush. So very interesting data there, Shweta. Mukesh Ambani, in fact, cut down his salary to zero. Well, everybody needs the money, right?
Does he not have enough?
It's never enough. I think it's never enough. Right. But yeah, I think let's go back to those graphics and see. I think interesting data there. So Mukesh Ambani prior to 2020 had a fixed salary of 15 crore rupees per annum, which in fact was a reduction. He had taken a haircut of about 24 crore rupees in 2008-2009. But at the start of COVID, in fact in June 2020, he decided to cut his salary down to zero. Now, even as he awaits his extension of 5 years as chairman and managing director, the annual report came out yesterday suggests that he's going to continue with zero salary. So Mukesh Ambani at zero salary over there. Let's look at the salaries of some of the other board members of Reliance Industries. Mukesh Ambani's cousins Nikhil and Hetal Meswani are at salaries of 25 crore rupees each, which incidentally is higher than the salary that Mukesh Ambani was drawing before June 2020, which was at 15 crore per annum. Executive directors PMS Prasad and Kumar Kapil are at 13.5 and 4.4 crore rupees each. Let's look at the salary of Neeta Ambani. Neeta Ambani is actually at a salary of just rupees 6 lakh, which she draws as board sitting fee. And in addition to that, draws about 2 crore rupees in commissions. All other independent directors also at Reliance draw a commission of about 2 crore rupees each. And KV Kamath, who has been brought in to help with the Jio Financial Services as a separate entity, as an advisor, is at a 3 lakh rupees salary as sitting fee on the board, and 39 lakh rupees only as commission.
As commission. All right, lovely. So big numbers there for some of them, not so big for the rest of them. Interesting figures there, but it is important to also point out, Mukesh Ambani, although drawing zero salary, the family overall has a net income that would be an envy of a lot of people in the world,
a lot of
not in India.
A lot of economies of small countries would be envious,
Absolutely.
I think.
So a lot of people and a lot of economies all throughout the world. But I think those are interesting numbers. We'll of course keep bringing you more of these numbers. Kush, appreciate you joining us this morning. Thanks very much for taking time out. We're going to move on here. A story that we've been tracking since Thursday when the notification came out from the Government of India on import bans of laptops, PCs, palm tops and servers. It now appears that the industry is asking for a quicker license, for government to clarify on how quickly can they get the license, for the government to clarify in fact on a whole lot of things. Over the weekend we also got news that the government is going to roll back this notification, maybe introduce it at a later time, but that's not going to happen.
So from what we understand right now, Shweta, I think the government is saying that these restrictions are going to kick in only from the 1st of November, not before that. And this seems to be also festive season approaching, Diwali, Dussehra, etc. These are times when people indulge in more expensive purchases, whether it is cars or whether it is houses or even laptops, PCs, tablets. So any sort of capital expenditures that that households do is during this festive season. So it seems that the government has right now at least pushed it to the 1st of November, and that is when the import license kicks in. Now, what the industry is actually saying right now is that it is keeping a very close watch to see if the government is going to put some sort of a quota. How much can you import, right? Is there going to be some sort of a volume cap or valuation cap on the value of laptops, PCs, tablets that you import? Now, industry is also very clear that it's going to take anything up to maybe 9 to 12 months to set up a base of new suppliers or to set up some sort of manufacturing within the country, right? So that is what the industry is saying. What the government is saying is that it wants to open up the PLI sector, it wants to encourage production, it wants India to become not just a manufacturing hub for the domestic market but also a manufacturing hub for the export market when it comes to making and selling PCs and computer hardware. Right. So that is what the government is saying. Consumers right now are a little jittery, a little wary. Consumers feel that in the immediate run, there is going to be a price overrun. There is going to be at least a 5% or so increase in the prices of laptops, tablets, PCs. And with the festive season, hopefully, that jump in prices could be avoided because 1st November is when this import restriction comes in. But beyond that, I think for a year and a half or so, until we find new suppliers and those contracts stitched up, or we find OEMs wanting to make investments, set up factories in India, start making in India, we should brace ourselves for more expensive PCs, tablets, laptops coming our way. Now, government on its part is also trying to sort of, allay fears of the industry by saying that this is not going to be, a very difficult license to procure. What the government is perhaps trying to say and not say as clearly is that this is not license Raj of the 1980s and early 90s, where any sort of import that you wanted to do, any sort of business you wanted to do overseas required long queues of licenses and long forms to be filled. and a lot of bureaucratic hurdles. That is not what is likely to happen this time around, and licenses are going to come by fairly quickly is what the government is saying. But obviously all of this is yet to kick-start. So some little blips, bumps cannot be ruled out.
Okay, would it then be right to say that the entire move has been taken to bring into account, or rather structure, as to who's getting how many parts from where, so which company is dependent on other companies, primarily from China and South Korea, because they continue to be the destinations from where we are getting most of our imported PCs and laptops and the hardware parts. So to keep an account of that, and perhaps strategically in a very structural fashion, maybe put a break to it, one after the other. So there would be a timeline as opposed to a blanket ban that you cannot import starting 1st of November. We just want to know where you're importing from. So take a license so that we know, and then going ahead,
that's right, Shweta. So the government is saying that quicker licenses will come your way. We are doing this to protect national interest by way of making sure that your partners are trustworthy. These are trusted partners, trusted by the government of India. So it comes with the government sort of stamp of approval that, yeah, you can import from such and such company based in such and such country. I think it is fairly clear that China is not going to be one of the trusted partners. But interestingly, Thailand and Vietnam have emerged in recent times as hubs of laptop manufacturing. So I think while China becomes a country that we want to avoid doing business with, rightly so, I would add, my own perspective. I think rightly so, China becomes one of the countries we want to avoid doing business with. A sort of forced imposition like this also helps us open avenues to exploring other trading partners. That is number one. Number two, I believe this government right now has developed this fairly irritating habit of immediately, overnight, coming out with a rule, saying it is valid from such and such date,
then going back on their
waiting
words,
for the whole world to break open and debates to happen, and then rolling back either completely or partly. We've seen what happened with TCS on international travel, right? With no mechanism set to ensure that the transition to a stated policy is seamless, we arbitrarily decide on a date and we say, hey, this is going to get implemented. When it doesn't get implemented, we push the date back. We have done almost the same thing with GST on gaming, the 28% GST on face value. Government has stuck to it, like it has stuck mostly to TCS, stuck to the 28% GST, but a deferred date. We are seeing almost exactly in the case of
sort of a replica
import restrictions. You say immediately, last week this news breaks, it's going to happen immediately, all hell breaks loose, and you say, oh, how are we going to manage, where are we going to get our laptops from, prices are going to shoot up, and over the weekend government says, hey, you know, maybe let's just think about it, push it by a couple of months. So I think this sort of
an absence of stakeholder discussion,
absence of stakeholder decision, this knee-jerk reaction to come up with an idea, implemented immediately without really evaluating the feasibility of it on both sides. I think this is something which is leading to some sort of a mistrust by industry on government, that you come out with a policy and are you going to stick to that policy? Are you going to keep postponing it? Are you going to keep deferring it? And then this whole debate of going back to license, Raj, you know, what happened to free markets?
Right, absolutely.
I mean, I understand you want to hit China and you want to hit China economically, also because you are heading into a fairly heated election season. So you have to make China your number one enemy to garner the votes. And I understand the politics of the economics, but I think speaking pure business, trade, liberalization, I think, you know, license, Raj, is something that we had bid adieu to decades ago, and to introduce it in any form right now for whatever reasons, stated or unstated, is something that the government needs to sort of evaluate.
All right, so the government needs to evaluate whether it wants to quickly roll out policy decisions that it then goes back on. Remember, we had Rahul Agrawal, former CEO of Lenovo, join us on Friday, who said, and I quote, it is a regressive move. The government is now thinking on when to finally put this policy into action. Will it be October, November? As of now, it's going to be 1st of November. We're going to brace for the impact, and industry, of course, continues to react in a not so healthy fashion. But we're going to move on now. Another story that is coming in, and that is by the way of Prime Minister's plans and the government's plans for railways and redevelopment of railways. The Amrit Bharat station scheme was launched with much fan and fervor. Let's quickly listen into Prime Minister Modi on what he said. We have a quick reaction from it. I'll also call my colleague here who can join us perhaps meanwhile. Let's also play up that bite.
Hi, Amit Poding.
Yes, Amit, please.
साथियों, हमारा जोर भारतीय रेलवे को आधुनिक बनाने के साथ ही पर्यावरण फ्रेंडली बनाने पर भी है। बहुत जल्द भारत के 100% रेल ट्रैक्स इलेक्ट्रिफाइड होने जा रहे हैं, यानी कुछ ही वर्षों में भारत की सारी ट्रेनें सिर्फ बिजली से चला करेगी। इससे पर्यावरण की कितनी बड़ी मदद होगी आप अंदाजा लगा सकते हैं। 9 वर्षों में सोलर पैनल से बिजली बनाने वाले रेलवे स्टेशनों की संख्या भी 1200 से ज्यादा हो गई है। लक्ष्य यही है कि आने वाले समय में सभी स्टेशन ग्रीन एनर्जी बनाएं। हमारी ट्रेनों के करीब करीब 70,000 डिब्बे, 70,000 कोचेज में एलईडी लाइट्स लगाई जा चुकी हैं। ट्रेनों में बायो टॉयलेट्स की संख्या भी 2014 के मुकाबले अब 28 गुना ज्यादा हो गई है। ये जितने अमृत स्टेशन बनेंगे, ये भी ग्रीन बिल्डिंग्स के मानकों को पूरा करेंगे। 2030 तक भारत एक ऐसा देश होगा जिसकी रेलवे नेट जीरो एमिशन पर चलेगी।
My colleague Amit Ranjan joins us here in the studio. Amit, good morning.
Good morning.
Railways is the lifeline of this country, its economy, its people, and we now know more than 500 stations will be redeveloped.
Yeah, in all, in the medium term 500, in the immediate term it is 138 in 7 states: Chhattisgarh, Haryana, Jharkhand, Madhya Pradesh, Gujarat, Odisha and Punjab. So at a cost of little over 24,000 crores of rupees that is being outlaid by the government. Now, I believe quite a bit of this will be private investment also. And as we heard, green is the way to go. If you guys will indulge me, one thing that Reliance has also said is affordable hydrogen fuel.
Okay.
The operative word being affordable here. So the stations are going green, that is solar. Corporates are going green. The revamp, which is 24,000 crores north, will be from the government side. I am sure there will be a component which is not revealed as yet, which will be from the private investments also in railway station maintenance.
All right. So essentially, the idea is to go green. The idea is to redevelop some of these stations.
Modernize,
redevelop some of these stations. What stations are we looking at?
There are 138 in these 7 states. So, I mean, you can name all the big cities, be it Bhubaneswar, be it Puri, be it Konark, be it all the Jhansi, Gwalior, forgive me, not Jhansi, Gwalior, Bhopal, Itarsi, Betul in Madhya Pradesh, all the stations that you can think of in Punjab. So basically 138 is a big number and 508 is an even bigger number in the medium term.
All right, 508, a very big number, important policy initiative there. Also, I have to bring in the politics into it. Just a year ahead of elections, we know how important railways are, Karthik, and we know how political they can be.
I agree, Shweta, but I think whatever it takes to get railway
Get us there.
stations revamped, whatever it takes to have clean platforms, clean toilets, not smelly railway tracks, a better waiting experience, air-conditioned waiting lounges. I think whatever gets us there, whether it is an election, whether it is anything for that matter, I think I will look at positivity here. I will not look at vested interests.
Karthik being an eternal optimist.
Case to point, I would say the Prime Minister should stand from every constituency in India. If anybody wants to have a look at the Banaras railway station, what it looks like now, it's nothing short of an airport.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah,
so I haven't been, so I don't really know.
In recent times. So, yeah. So, if that is the benchmark, then I think politics aside, it's good for the consumers.
All right, good for consumers there. Great news by the way of a brand new Amrit Bharat station scheme, which essentially means more than 500 stations will now be redeveloped. The window timeline is that of 5 years?
For all of them, but
all of
immediately it's 138.
138 in the immediate run, over 5 years' time, all 500 of them. So we'll of course bring you more details as and when they emerge. But moving on to another story that you're tracking, and that is by the way of DA, the Dearness Allowance for government employees. They just can't have it enough. It will be now hiked up to 45%.
Yeah, so it's the second hike this year. It goes up from 42%, which was effective from the 1st of January, and that was up from 38%. That was a 4% hike. If you indulge me, I take you back the year before. In 2022, it had gone up from 34 to 38%. In 2021, it had been increased twice, from 17 to 28%, and then from 28 to 31. And then in 2022, 31 to 34, and then to 38. So it has been going, it has been constantly increasing at least twice a year for the last 3 years.
Okay,
so that's where it stands. If broadly how it is calculated is, there is something known as a consumer price index for urban wage earners and government employees that are clerical workers. So, which is the CPI. CPI since 2001, which is the base year, minus the CPI for the last year, divided by the same and multiplied by 100. So that percentage.
All right.
If that makes any sense to you guys.
Well, it's a lot of numbers there, Amit. I think we'll have to sort of pull out our Excel sheets, and we'll have to pull out our jotting notebooks and pads and see what sense we make out of it. But I think to understand clearly, DA is a function of inflation, isn't it?
Yes.
So Dearness Allowance is added as part of the salary for government. See, I think the basic salary gets revised every time there's a pay commission.
Yes.
But pay commission comes only once every few years. So
Yes.
until then, Dearness Allowance is the inflation adjustment tool available for government employees, so that by the time a correction in their base salaries happens and their basic salaries happens, we ensure that government employees are not hit as hard by inflation. So I think that is the broad, it used to be called Mehengai Bhatta. I think it is still called that.
It is still the Mehengai Bhatta.
So Dearness Allowance is Mehengai Bhatta. It is something, a tool available with the government to ensure that until the next pay commission comes, and pay commissions come a few years too late, and the adjustments by way of arrears are done for prior years, I think it comes so Dearness Allowance comes as a way to ensure that
relief.
in the immediate term, at least the shocks of inflation can be absorbed by such an allowance. So I think good news there for government
Good
employees. They
news.
should be
Absolutely.
happy. 45%, that's almost half your basic salary as inflation adjusted.
Do you have
salary.
anyone in government services? If you do, I mean, it's good news for them. My father is in government services, so I'm happy about that.
Yeah, as Karthik said, these are parts of the recommendations of the 7th pay commission, which has been on a few years, and it also said that it caps at 50%. So we are at 45. It will go up to 50%, which means in the time to come.
Well, good for government employees. But let's move on. And move on to a story that is coming internationally. It appears Elon Musk is ready for a fight, and ready for a fight with no less than Mark Zuckerberg. Now, we don't have a reaction from Mark Zuckerberg, but it was last year when he said that I am ready to fight in a cage. A lot of tweets coming out there from Elon Musk. I'm not sure if any of it is real, whether there's going to be a fight, whether it be broadcasted live.
When I saw the headline, in fact, I saw about this time yesterday, a few hours later, maybe about 23 hours ago, I saw this tweet from Elon Musk that the fight is going to be out on the X platform and we're going to be live. And I was wondering, what fight are we talking about here? Are we actually talking about the fight of X versus Threads? Are we talking about a fight of, of artificial intelligence? Are we talking about, what fight are we talking about? And so we later realized, oh, they are actually talking about the real fight. They're talking about the real fist fight, or the real sort of, getting
Cage
directly
fight,
with
apparently.
each other, a cage fight in a ring, and literally fighting each other. And this is pretty much, if not knives out, it's definitely gloves off. Now, incidentally, both Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg go to the same training grounds.
Yeah.
I think they, Amit, you want to add something?
No. I was saying but the person who is talking about it, and more instances than one, is Elon Musk.
Yeah.
So
I think he's being
confident
cheeky.
of beating the other one up.
I have a strong feeling that he's being cheeky.
But
that
he's
none
a
of this
cheeky brat,
is.
right?
He
I
is
think
cheeky.
Psycho games.
So I think if nothing else, this is going to be one move which is going to bring a lot of more people onto X today. I find it so difficult to not call it Twitter, and I find it so difficult to not call a tweet, but rather to adjust to calling it a post. But anyway, it's going to be a live post, it's going to be a live video, it's going to be streamed live, and anybody who's out there on Threads is likely to still go to X today and watch this fight. Now, I don't know what time this fight is slated. US time, it should happen
I
sometime
highly
during
doubt
the day,
there's going to
right?
be a fight.
But I think there would be. And
yeah.
Elon Musk there, very proudly saying that he weighs 136 kgs, incidentally.
And he's been lifting weights.
Twice the weight of Mark Zuckerberg. So it's going to be some fight there. I think I will definitely be waiting to see what this leads us to. And incidentally, another interesting post, and since we are saying, Elon Musk is an eccentric character, another interesting post from him around a couple of hours maybe after this post about the fight said that any employee who is asked by an employer to not post something on Twitter, or a post on Twitter being asked to take down by an employer, Elon Musk is saying, go fight and I will take care of your litigation. So it's a different fight out there. He's saying, it's a platform for free speech. It's a platform where you can openly express yourself. Go out, express. If your employer is telling you to take down something, all your legal costs, all your litigation costs are going to be borne by Elon Musk or by X.
By
the employee
X.
gets a job also?
I hope that comes as an added benefit, but we're going to shift focus from X to another interesting story that is coming by the way of Barbie. My colleague Krishna Kumar joining us at this point. Krishna, Barbie has now crossed into $1 billion box office revenue. This is one of the highest ever. Very interesting, important numbers there, not just for Barbie fans, but also fans of people who would like to see more feminist, female characters driven movies.
No, absolutely. It's a landmark in that sense. It's Greta Gerwig, the writer and director of this movie, will go down as the first woman filmmaker to have achieved that $1 billion mark at the box office solo. Let's classify what has exactly happened over here. There have been other movie directors, women filmmakers, who have been involved in movies that have crossed the $1 billion mark, like the famous animated film Frozen, which is co-directed by a woman, and there have been other examples as well. Captain America as well. So, but this one is different because this is a live action film, not an animation, and this is a solo directorial venture of Greta Gerwig, and for the first time ever, a solo women-directed movie has grossed more than $1 billion in the box office. Bear in mind, just within 3 weeks of the movie releasing. Mainly because it's done really well in markets outside of the US as well. In the US, definitely, of course, but outside of the US, UK, Australia, Mexico, China, the world's second largest movie exhibition market. There too, Barbie has done really well. Bear in mind, just for the year, Barbie is still not the highest grossing movie. That credit belongs to another animated film called the Super Mario Brothers movie. That has grossed over $1.35 billion at the box office. Barbie currently has raked in over $1.03 billion at the box office. So it is sort of ready, all set. And bear in mind, it's been only 3 weeks. There'll be at least another couple of weeks of run for the movie. A very good chance that Barbie will go on to become the biggest blockbuster of the year so far. And bear in mind, in movie box office history, only 53 films have crossed the $1 billion mark. So this is an achievement of achievements.
So this is a coveted league,
Krishna,
and
one quick
Barbie
question
seems to have
before
joined.
Shweta snubs us out. Do you think Barbie is going to break Top Gun Maverick's record of $1.5 billion that it collected last year? My favorite.
Right. There are many records, Karthik. If I'm telling you 1.357 is possible, I'm guessing that 1.5 billion record of Top Gun Maverick is under threat. The way Barbie is going,
Okay.
it's not slowing down, bear in mind. So all Top Gun fans, brace for a disappointment. Your movie could be beaten by Barbie.
I'm frowning
very
already.
soon.
I'm
right.
frowning already. I'm pushing my mic away and walking out of the studio.
The epitome of bromance, the epitome of masculine, friendship kind of movie like Top Gun is going to be beaten by the epitome
Right.
of feminism, the epitome of girls and womendom, which is Barbie.
Krishna, we are going to take this banter outside of the studio, or I'm going to be thrown out of the studio very, very shortly. But thanks very much for joining with all those inputs. With that, in fact, it's a wrap on this edition. Thanks very much for watching.
BrahMos, stealthy, lethal, precise. It flies at 3 times the speed of sound and cuts through a warship like a hot knife through butter. China's navy has threatened its neighbors, and they are turning to the BrahMos for protection. The Warship Killer. This and more streaming on world's first news OTT, News 9 Plus. Download now.
Ruthless, ambitious, manipulative, powerful. That's how the world knows Xi Jinping. And he's got even more powerful now. What drives China's supreme leader? He's the man who has threatened to annex Taiwan. He has torn up 30 years of border agreements with India. He wants to make China the biggest player in the history of the world by 2048. But what is Xi Jinping thinking? What shaped him? What's made him the most feared Chinese leader since Mao Zedong? A few key events in his childhood shaped his personality. When Xi was 10, the Chinese Communist Party purged his father, Mao's trusted lieutenant, Shi Zongjun.
Well, he was born with a silver spoon. He was the son of Shi Chungshun, who was a revolutionary who participated in the revolutionary campaigns in 1930s and 1940s. And he studied in one of the most elitist schools in Beijing, reserved for the party cadets and the army cadets children. He also joined the Tsinghua University, which is considered to be #1 even today. Tsinghua University is like an IIT in India. Xi Jinping was sent to the villages as part of the overall campaign, and he was in a village conducting the Cultural Revolution campaign.
In 1966, the Red Guards ransacked the Xi household, forcing his sister to commit suicide and his mother to denounce her husband. Xi was then sent away to work in far-off Lianghihe village in Shaanxi province. Xi didn't flee abroad like his friends. Instead, he entered the CCP, the very party that had punished his father. Over the next 4 decades, he worked his way up the ladder. In 2012, he was elected General Secretary of the CCP, making him the paramount leader of China. At its 20th National Congress in Beijing, Xi is on the brink of making history. The party is likely to endorse him for the 3rd time since he took over. He has led China to become the world's 2nd largest economy with an army that most countries, especially India, view as a threat. What Xi did a few days after he took charge in 2012 should give us a sense of what goes on in his mind today.
从上海石窟门到嘉兴南湖。
He took over the power in 2012. Xi Jinping had centralized his powers extensively, and he decimated several factions within the rival factions within the party. So in this interregnum, he was able to remove many of the influences of the factional leaders.
You know, every time there's a change of leadership in China, there is a hope, particularly from the Western analysts that you get to see, to say that, you know, this gentleman, the new dispensation will bring in more democratization, more opening up, etc., etc. That seems to have been belied as far as Mr. Xi Jinping is concerned.
The newly appointed leader took the hammer to the People's Liberation Army, the party, the bureaucracy, and Chinese universities. He did this through a brutal anti-corruption drive, ideological straitjacketing, and an overhaul of power structures. He is first leader after Mao Zedong to make a public appearance in combat uniform. What does this mean?
And a lot of people have said that he is taking China back to the Mao days. The kind of procedural things that he is setting up, the kind of anti-corruption that he is doing, the kind of common prosperity that he is talking about, the kind of dual circulation to increase the domestic consumption that he is talking about.
So for the 100 years of the People's Republic of China, his objective is to that China becomes the power number 1 economically, but also militarily. And Xi Jinping believes that his system of governance is far superior than to the Western democracy, in particularly the Indian democracy, which he considers as very chaotic and unable to deliver the goods.
What Xi did to the army gives a hint of what was to unfold over the next 10 years. By 2014, he restructured rank and file. Over 40,000 officers of the PLA were dismissed and jailed on various charges of corruption.
Changed all the systems simultaneously in one go. Generally, militaries don't do that.
He then filled the centers of power with those blindly loyal to him. This ensured that the PLA became subservient to him and the CCP. By the time he was done, China had turned into the most totalitarian state it had ever been. Xi's grand ambition is clear when he speaks of his 3 big projects. The rejuvenation of the great Chinese nation, to make China a major power with pioneering global influence, and creating a community of common destiny.
He is talking about you should work like there's no tomorrow. Okay, so they'll continue to push for it. That is one. The second thing is that he is trying to get China to see what he talked about Chinese dream. You know, when he came to power, he talked about Chinese dream, and he also talked about national rejuvenation. So Chinese dream looks more towards internal issues plus increasing influence of China abroad. Whereas national rejuvenation looks at expanding the influence outward.
Despite getting a 3rd term, Xi has his share of challenges. The global slowdown has forced Xi to slash government wages by up to 30%. Another big domestic worry is the powerful princelings, China's entrepreneurs who contribute up to 80% of the country's employment. Xi's totalitarianism has made them anxious. He will have to find ways to keep the princelings quiet. The pitfalls are even greater overseas.
The Americans have been supporting Taiwan. In the recent Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan, the Chinese military had conducted exercises closer to Taiwan, and it appeared that China is about to invade, taking a cue from the Russian invasion of Ukraine. The second challenge is in relation to Senkaku Islands with Japan, the South China Sea Islands dispute with Vietnam, Malaysia, Philippines, Brunei and other countries.
Xi will also have to deal with its biggest global adversary, the US, against which China stands at odds when it comes to Taiwan, the South China Sea, and most recently, the war in Ukraine. If the US does decide to up the ante and impose sanctions, CCP officials fear that both the Chinese economy and 40 million of their own cadre will be severely hit. This has created a powerful opposing force in the Indo-Pacific. India, Japan and Australia have all said that they will not stand for China becoming the regional overlord. Xi has made it clear that China will not back down from its aggressive foreign policy positions.
But we may likely to see Xi Jinping conducting a nationalist, highly nationalist rhetoric on India, reviving the East India Company images on the century of humiliation, etc., etc., and increasing the nationalist rhetoric on India. So this is an extreme position that he is likely to take.
Yes, it's 2.5 years, nearly 2.5 years that the Chinese, the PLA, the People's Liberation Army, has come into 4 or 5 places in Ladakh, and though agreements have been found for 3 or 4 places.
He wants to redraw China's borders and recover territories he believes are rightfully theirs. This directly impacts India. This means China will continue to press its claims over Ladakh and Arunachal Pradesh and several pockets of land along the border, except more skirmishes, pitched battles and diplomatic wrangling. Xi won't find it easy to achieve these lofty ambitions, but one thing is certain. Seeing how he has amassed power and imposed his will on the most powerful institutions in China and abroad, Xi Jinping will make it hard for the world to ignore him for the next 5 years at least.
China won't let us rest easy on our borders, but they will keep flooding our markets. What does Xi Jinping really want?
I think he wants the Indian market, no doubt about it. It's really a matter of showing their dominance.
India's great Chinese conundrum.
Nobody can contain it. Not the United States, not China, not anybody else.
Frenemies. Streaming now.
ChatGPT. It can generate codes and human-like responses through text, write stories, and do a lot more.
I work in a newsroom with anchors, researchers and scriptwriters, graphic artists, producers, video editors, camera crew. But does a newsroom really need them today?
All of us have to think about unique and distinctive value addition that cannot be automated or repeated or replaced by a machine.
ChatGPT may kill many companies.
A human has to be in the loop with an ability to control this.
Dark Side of the Boom. Streaming now.
इंजीनियरिंग कर रहे हैं, जो कि सभी लोग कर रहे हैं.
Coaching is now starting from grade 3, 4, 5, 6.
कोटा जाने वाली बीच राह में आधे टेस्ट देके हैं सिलेक्शन की चाह में.
ऑल इंडिया का बच्चा कोटा जाता है.
This rat race is for rats, not for humans. So why should we even be a part of it?
The Rat Race. This and more streaming on world's first news OTT, News 9 Plus. Download now.
Hello and welcome to this News 9 special. After the SE stayed the conviction in the Modi surname case, Rahul Gandhi has been reinstated as Member of Parliament. Rahul will be attending the monsoon session of the Parliament as it sees the contentious debate on Manipur as well as the Delhi service.